Something is coming. Something hungry for blood. A shadow grows on the wall behind you, swallowing you in darkness. It is almost here.
What is it?
What if it's the Demogorgon? Oh, Jesus, we're so screwed if it's the Demogorgon.
It's not the Demogorgon. An army of troglodytes charge into the chamber.
Troglodytes?
Told you.
Wait a minute. Do you hear that? That sound. Boom. Boom. Ow! That didn't come from the troglodytes. No, that came from something else. The Demogorgon!
We're in deep shit.
Will, your action!
I don't know.
Fireball him!
I'd have to roll a 13 or higher.
Too risky. Cast a protection spell.
Don't be a pussy. Fireball him.
Cast protection.
The Demogorgon is tired of your silly human bickering. It stops towards you. Boom! Fireball him, Will! Stop! Boom!
This probably happened that night we tried role-playing. Oh, I need a spanking. I'm a bad, bad girl.
I'm a paladin with 18 charisma and 97 hit points. I can use my Helm of Disintegration and do 1d4 damage as my half-elf mage wields his +5 Holy Avenger.
Paladins can't use the Helm of Disintegration.
Oh.
Eternity with nerds. It's the Pasadena Star Trek convention all over again.
Anyone want to play Dungeons and Dragons for the next quadrillion years?
Sure, I guess.
On to Rook 8.
I'm a 10th level vice president.
Robbie! Pardue! What are you doing? Going to join the Great Hall.
You can't. It's a trap.
I have spells. I'm going to fly.
You don't have enough points. I am the maze controller.
Maze control?
Yes. And I have absolute authority in this game.
Game?
Game.
Greetings, programs and users. Once again, it is time for Old Nerds Drinking. I'm John Patrick, the Master Control Program. And here with me this time is a new face to the old drinking community.
Well, not a new face, an old face.
An old face, but a new face to the studio, we'll say.
Yeah, very true. Hi, everybody. I am Dave the Nerd. Old high school chum of Mr. El Guapo.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm tired, man.
I believe it from what you were saying before about your long days, but I'm glad you can make it here. Usual co-host Rojan is taking some time off, doing some stuff for his podcast, Project Archivist. So we'll be having some guest stars for the next episode. But as is tradition here on Old Nerds Drinking, Dave, what are you drinking?
You made me this delightful, charming, and very tasty Naughty Gnome.
Oh, man, it's a thing. I'm making it a thing, everybody. I'm getting everybody to drink it. I'm having one, too. They're delicious.
They are. I was quite surprised with how good it was.
Mm-hmm. It's not overpowering of any flavor. It's a good, you're not really tasting the bitters. You're not really tasting the rum. You're just tasting the Vernors with, a little bit extra. And it just makes it great.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I dragged you out here for this is Dave and I have a history going back to our high school days. We were both avid role players, and we found ourselves in high school, and we even managed to start up my senior year. I'm not sure what year that was.
My sophomore year.
Yeah, we started up a role-playing club at the high school and got some people into it.
Probably one of the only good things that Carl Poposky did.
God bless that guy. I was just talking to one of our teachers on Wednesday, and we got to the subject of Carl Poposky, and I think he's playing in a cruise band.
Yep, the PM Dallas, or Party Machine Dallas, I think. Actually, Carl put out his own promoted, self-recorded album of him playing his trombone.
Oh my god, I need to...
It's on Spotify.
Oh, I need to find that right away. We were talking about Carl, and it's like, yeah, he's doing a cruise band. I'm like, now I wonder if that pays more or less than being a teacher.
Depends on the district.
Yeah, and that's what we came up. We were not sure about that. Getting back on subject, so Dave and I have a history and a shared love of role-playing, and there's been some big news in the role-playing world these last 2 weeks, and I thought there was probably nobody better in my friend group to come over and talk about this stuff with.
Yeah. Well, being that I've been playing since 1985, I started with the box.
Oh. I started... my uncle taught me BattleTech at probably when I was 12 or 13. And then that was it until I hit high school. And then myself and a group of friends started playing the Star Wars RPG.
The West End Games version.
The one true Star Wars RPG. So, and forever there starts the tale. Once I had started down the dark path, forever had it dominated my existence.
Yes. Come to the dark side.
The sad thing is, as much as I love role-playing, I did not start playing D&D really till 5th edition.
And I started, like I said, back with the box. I moved from the box to 2nd edition. Then I jumped to 3.5. And I scoffed at 4th edition.
We don't talk about 4th edition.
Yeah. You should never talk about 4th edition.
No, but we don't talk about 4th edition.
4th edition is like if you put Austin Powers in the same regards as James Bond.
Well, it's... So... We give a lot of we throw a lot of shade at 4th edition, but 4th edition had its place. It was after the bubble burst on 3.5.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons was hitting a slump. That would have been like late 2000s.
2008, 2010.
Yeah, 2008. Because some of the research I was doing for these articles was talking about it, and that was kind of when MMOs were the biggest they had ever been.
Yeah, World of Warcraft.
So there's been several times in D&D's history where it was losing to other markets, and it tried to pivot to bring back market share. So D&D 4th edition was an attempt to pivot into the MMO crowd. They rejiggered the system to work more like an MMO.
Yeah.
To where you have powers that, okay, this is my once per combat power. This is my I can only use it once a day power. They made skills kind of just background. They didn't really matter as much anymore, whereas in 3.5, it was all about your skills.
Roll a tumble check.
Right.
Roll what was it? Intimidation and persuasion check together.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and it's like, roll these, I get +4 for my attribute, I get +8 for these feats, my skill bonus is, or I've dedicated so many levels in it.
Don't forget your 3 magic items that add to it too.
Yeah, my 3 magic items. So by the time you get to actually rolling the dice, your modifier is +18. So as long as you don't botch, you pass the roll.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a little crazy. But it never did what it was intended. It never drew people away from MMOs. I won't say it didn't capture, but the people who were pen and paper enthusiasts didn't like it specifically because it played like an MMO, and they didn't play pen and paper RPGs because they wanted to play like an MMO. So it was an experiment, but it was a failed experiment.
Yeah, then came along 5th edition, and when it first came out as D&D Next, it was okay. It kind of had the feeling of traditional. I was just waiting for somebody to mention the dreaded THAC0. And it never happened, and then I lost or got out of the group I was playing because I was going for my undergrad. Then a friend told me, hey, check out Critical Role.
Yeah.
And I'm currently one episode behind their current episode.
Do you realize I've never watched any Critical Role?
I watch it just for the, how should I say, the adult humor.
Yeah. I'm just one of those people. I've never really enjoyed watching other people play a game. I'm not... I mean, I watch a lot of Twitch, but what I watch on Twitch is mainly, like, miniature painting stuff.
Riff tracks.
I was going to say the MST3K channel. I don't like... Okay, so this is a side rant. There's an MST3K channel, and there was a Riff Tracks channel. The MST3K channel sometimes shows Riff Tracks on it, but the Riff Tracks channel just shows Riff Tracks. The MST3K channel puts commercial breaks into their thing, but the thing is, if you don't subscribe to the channel, you just watch commercials, and you still get to watch the movies. The Riff Tracks channel, if you don't subscribe to it, they insert commercials, but they don't stop the movie. I don't subscribe to a lot of YouTube or Twitch channels because, if I subscribed to every channel I watched, I'd be out $100. I enjoy some of the Riff Track stuff, but I can't stand the commercial break and then I've missed 5 minutes of the movie. So I stick to MST3K.
Well, the classic MST3K, great. The remake with Jonah Hill, not that good.
Hit or miss. There were some really good episodes, and then there were some just kind of okay ones. I watched part of Season 2, The Gauntlet. I don't think I got through it all, but I think The Gauntlet was the first time I had ever watched an MST3K and watched them riff a movie that I had actually seen in a theater. Want to take a stab in the dark into which movie that was?
No.
Oh, it was Mac and Me.
Oh.
Which I remember seeing at the Wyandotte Theater and thinking it was a god-awful ripoff of E.T.
It was a 2-hour McDonald's commercial.
No, Coke.
And McDonald's.
It was Coca-Cola bankrolled the movie as a way to basically just another form of advertising. But because McDonald's was a Coca-Cola licensee, they were featured heavily because at the time it was a big deal that as a fast food franchise, they had Coke.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's like Riff Tracks. I saw, technically 2 of their movies in the theater. One is kind of apropos for me because of my fandom and other films that the main actor or supporting actor in this film, but still billed as a main actor. And then the other was just a train wreck of a movie.
Man, but Riff Tracks did some more mainstream stuff.
The one that's apropos to me is No Retreat, No Surrender.
The
Van Damme movie?
Yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Where it takes place in Seattle and they pull in a whole Bruce Lee narrative to it.
Oh my god, yes, with the kid who runs away to an abandoned house and is trained in kung fu by the ghost of Bruce Lee.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's
it's such a cheesy movie, but a good martial arts movie. Not good, but a decent martial arts movie for the 90s.
Yeah, and it's so weird that Jean-Claude Van Damme's in it because he's just like the head
Ivan the Russian.
Yeah, he's the head henchman. He's not even like the main bad guy. He's the bad guy's number one henchman.
Exactly. Then the one that was just so bad it was funny, and the Riff Tracks just makes it even more funny to the point that I actually purchased it on Amazon Prime. Too Cold. Or is it cold as ice?
Yes, it is cold as ice.
The
vanilla
ice story. Drop that zero and get with the hero.
Oh, it's
the
so
tagline
bad.
of the movie.
My personal favorite is still Space Mutiny. There's a riff track of Space Mutiny. They did a MST3K episode of Space Mutiny, and it's just amazing. It's a sci-fi movie, but like the interiors of the starship are an industrial warehouse that's not even pretending to be anything other than an industrial warehouse. One of the main bridge crew members is killed by the mutineers, and then the rest of the movie, she's still on the bridge after she's killed.
As a corpse or as a live person?
No, as a live person.
Oh,
all the exterior spaceship shots are recycled footage from the 1980s Battlestar Galactica.
Wait, was that a Cylon I just saw walking by?
Yeah. The pirates are in the Cylon Raiders, and the good guys are in the Vipers, and the ship they're on is 100% the Battlestar Galactica.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you have not seen it, it is currently free on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, anybody, it is 2 hours you will enjoy.
I'll have to think about that this weekend.
Yeah. So let's circle back around to the main topic.
This is why you don't get a nerd on a show like this.
Hey man, you don't even know. When Sean and I record, we're talking like 2 hours of raw audio at least, and then it's just cut down to an hour. Last week, an article came out, and it was in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. Now, there's nerd cred, then there's nerd cred.
Yeah, they're and this is something we're seeing is you are seeing nerd cred and specifically gaming coming up a lot more often in traditional media,
especially with this whole COVID BS going around.
Last year, there was an article in Forbes talking about Games Workshop, the company that publishes the Warhammer 40K miniature game. But they compared them against Amazon, that while their stocks are different prices, but if you look at the growth curve of their stock,
they're the same.
No. Games Workshop has outperformed Amazon handedly for the last 3 years.
Interesting.
Yeah. They have consistently grown their price, and just the last... even you would think that with the advent of 3D printing, with the glut of other companies coming out and making miniature games, or even making third-party stuff to use for Warhammer, and even with COVID, that Games Workshop would be taking a hit. No, this is their third straight year of record-setting profit. Even losing a good chunk of their production schedule because it's made overseas and they had problems shipping during COVID, so they missed a lot of delivery deadlines. Their stores were closed. They still put out a third straight record year of profit.
That's insane.
That is, it's crazy. But you have Forbes going, hey, this gaming company in England is a better investment deal than currently Amazon. So then we get to this article in the Wall Street Journal, and this was specifically talking about, so the chain of ownership of Dungeons and Dragons starts with TSR, which Gary Gygax's company.
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul. In the 80s, they got into financial trouble, and through various business moves, they edged out Gary Gygax out of the company, and were able to keep it financially solvent till 1997, when they had to sell it to Wizards of the Coast. And then in 1999, Wizards of the Coast was bought by Hasbro. So last week at their shareholders meeting, Hasbro announced that they're going to split their company into 3 division headings. One of them is going to be focused on toys. One of them is going to be focused on IP licensing. The third branch of the company is called Wizards and Digital. It is going to be headed by Wizards of the Coast and their management team. It's going to focus on expanding existing games and properties. So, Dungeons and Dragons, Magic...
D&D Beyond,
yeah,
MTG...
Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, all that, expanding them.
Oh, I didn't think Pokemon was part of...
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast made Pokemon. That's why Hasbro bought them.
Ah.
Because the Pokemon CCG did so amazingly well that Hasbro bought them to have access to the Pokemon CCG. Its second goal is going to be creating new game properties. So, new CCGs, new art role-playing games, new board games.
Great, now we're going to have a Pokemon RPG. You could be Ash Ketchum. Who do you pick as your first Pokemon?
Charmander.
Always
Charmander. And then their last goal will be overseeing the digital licensing of their gaming properties. So, D&D video games, the Magic Online game, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the other... so this is the interesting part, was at the very end of the article, in the last paragraph, they mentioned that in the coming year, they had signed collaboration agreements for Magic the Gathering with Games Workshop
Oh, nice.
and Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
So, Games Workshop is a company that has been traditionally ironclad in control of their property. They are very selective about who they license to and how they license. So them opening up to WotC is huge. And then the Lord of the Rings... so, Lord of the Rings, I don't know if you remember this, but way back in the day, I played a lot of Magic.
Yeah, we played Magic in Symphonic Band during Channel 1 and everything.
Did we? I think right after high school, or like middle of high school, is when I quit Magic cold turkey.
Yeah.
But I was beta to 5th edition. And there was an intellectual property battle between Wizards of the Coast and the Tolkien estate. Because the Tolkien estate had a Middle-earth card game, and in the game, one of the concepts of Magic was to show that you had used a card, you turned it sideways to indicate tapping it. So, Wizards of the Coast tried to assert that they owned the intellectual right to the idea of turning a card sideways to indicate that it had been used as a game mechanic. And specifically, they went after the Middle-earth card game.
Oh, poor.
Oh, so the Tolkien estate said, hey, that's cool. We understand that's your intellectual property, or you want to do that. However, we own the term orc. So, unless you want to change every card you have that uses the word ORC to indicate an orc and pay us a royalty on them, how about you just let this slide?
Yeah. We'll do that, sir. Not a problem, sir.
Yep. Which is very important to note that in Games Workshop's games, all of their orcs are spelled O-R-K to specifically distance them from Tolkien orcs. So yeah, this is a huge deal. Hasbro has... the toy business isn't what it used to be 20 years... excuse me, the toy business isn't what it used to be 40 years ago.
I know, it's a bitter pill to swallow, dude. It's a bitter pill to swallow.
The heyday of the 80s, the cartoons as just a half an hour commercial for toy lines.
I still think the 90s was like 10 years ago, and it's 30.
But this is a thing. You have essentially one of the more powerful companies in the toy and entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, Hasbro still covers the Transformers.
G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, which I'm told some people still watch. But, so yeah, you have this big, powerful company, and what they originally bought as kind of just a side thing to get Pokemon is now becoming a core part of their business for the foreseeable future. Hasbro in 2020 declared an 8% net loss in their business. However, the Wizards of the Coast brand posted, I think, a 20 to 30% profit. So Wizards, out as a division, outstripped the parent company percentage-wise.
And that's probably because of D&D Beyond and all the digital content that they put out.
And just leveraging D&D as... I wouldn't say leveraging D&D, but I would say that we have reached a point of cultural saturation. I would say that thanks to the kind of just nerdification of the mainstream, that now where D&D used to be guys like us in a basement... Now, D&D is Joe
Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello. Man, I can never pronounce his name right.
Well, you got him. You got Matthew Lillard. You got Vin Diesel. You got Stephen Colbert. You got, Terry Crews.
Terry Crews. The newly crowned Lord of the Nerds, Henry Cavill.
Yeah. Deborah Ann Wool, I think it is. She played Jessica on True Blood.
Never watched True Blood.
She played the female lead on Daredevil. Netflix Daredevil.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, she Relics and Rarities from Geek and Sundry. She's GM on that.
Oh, yeah. So we've got this where in the 1980s we had Monsters and Mazes
with Tom Hanks.
And
all the satanic...
Satanic Panic.
Yep.
And to now it's the point where like normal people are talking about D&D because it's just they're watching Critical Role.
Yeah.
They
watched it on Big Bang Theory. They watched it on the what was it? Bender's Game from Futurama.
I was going to say Stranger Things.
Well, that too.
And Stranger Things, it was they played it in the show, and then they made a starter box set
of the module that the kid was running.
Yep.
The House of Thelestrias, I think it was.
I don't know. I haven't picked up that box set, but
I do D&D Beyond, and they had a good deal on the Legendary Bundle, which is every resource that they had at the time. So I got that. I got every module that they put out as of, I want to say, December. All the source books that they had out.
Oh, wow.
As of December. It was like $250 for everything.
Yeah, but for the content level that's a decent
like
deal.
$900 worth of content, and I got for $250. I was like, done. And it's always with me.
And that's a good point to bring up in this, talking about the financials of it. So you've got D&D Beyond, which is a website where you can run online games, and you can buy the resources online to use them on their website. It's all cloud-based. So you are selling a product with zero physical cost.
And it's half the price of the physical books.
Yeah, which is all profit.
Yeah.
It's all profit. So they're making a higher profit margin off that stuff, so it behooves them to reinvest into that as a resource.
Yep.
So that's why we see D&D, or Wizards of the Coast, doing so well just off of D&D.
Yep.
And you would think that in a time of pandemic, D&D, we'd see a dip because people can't get together and play.
But then you got Foundry RPG, you got Roll20, you got Owlbear Rodeo, you got Shard Tabletop, you got all these VTT or virtual tabletop.
Tabletop Simulator as well.
Yeah. You got all these different resources that throw in a map, throw in some tokens, hop on Skype, hop on Discord is huge now. Discord and Roll20, Discord and Foundry, Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, you name it.
And you know, that's a whole nother side conversation, is the technological advancements of role-playing. Like, I remember when just having a dry erase pre-squared out map that you could draw on was like changing the world, because I could
put paper.
Yeah, I could put the miniatures on this thing, draw the dungeon, then wipe it all off and do it again. And now you've got guys building tables with
a television in it,
yes,
or a projector going down on it.
Yeah, so you can put the miniatures on that, or
even using stuff like Dwarven Forge. I'm seeing your castle ruins there.
That's actually a display board for one of my 40k armies, but
it's the same thing. Mocking up an entire thing on a piece of poster board, on a piece of plywood or something, just to set down and like, boom, here's your 3D virtual terrain. That way you can see all the different levels.
If I had the money, I would have more Dwarven Forge, because man, I love their stuff, but boy, does it cost.
But then you sent out a separate article for me to take a gander at.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. This was, I believe, from Viceland. And the title of the article is, "Could Role-Playing Games Be the Next Marvel Cinematic Universe?" So, Marvel did with the cinematic universe kind of what Hollywood hasn't seen since, like, the early era of cinemas, back to the Universal Monsters.
Yes.
Where it was, you have these characters, you have a narrative around these characters, but these characters move through other movies, and you're selling not just the characters themselves, but the universe that those characters share.
And then Japan came through with the Kaiju universe.
Yeah, and Japan did Kaiju, and the whole, what is the, it's not Shojin, but basically the genre of giant rubber monster suits.
Yeah.
So they had that, and then it never really caught in America again until Marvel Cinematics. Like, you would have characters that had their own universe, but they didn't often slip into another universe.
No.
And then you never had a shared narrative told long form through 10 years of movies set in this universe.
God, it has been 10 years.
But that's what it poses, that Hollywood's always looking for the next thing, the next Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it really does beg the question that could role-playing games do this? So we had, starting in the early 80s, the D&D cartoon.
Yeah.
And then we had the 2000s D&D movie.
Yep.
And its various direct-to-DVD sequels.
Then, I want to say it was in 2008, there was a Dragonlance animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
And now, next year, you have Chris Pine, Hugh Grant, Michelle Rodriguez, Sophia Lillis, Justice Smith, and Regé-Jean Page, all going to be in a brand new Dungeons & Dragons movie.
Yep. And going back to Joe Manganiello, I said it wrong, didn't I?
Close enough.
Yeah. He is working with Margaret Weis Productions to do a new Dragonlance movie.
Nice.
Or project. They haven't said exactly what it's going to be, but as he is now one of the High Lords of Nerddom. He was a direct force behind that passion project. But yeah, so we see Hollywood looking at Dungeons and Dragons specifically. But Dungeons and Dragons is more than just those two words. While in its barest sense, the game is the rules, there are settings that are tied to that rules.
Tons of different settings.
So over the history of D&D, just naming off some of them, we have Greyhawk, which was the original default setting.
Yep.
We had the Forgotten Realms, which was possibly one of the most expansive fantasy settings.
And probably one of the best well-known, with Baldur's Gate, Waterdeep, Neverwinter.
R.A. Salvatore's Dritz books.
Yeah.
Those are all set in the Forgotten Realms. Then you have Ravenloft, which was their kind of gothic horror setting.
Spelljammer, which was their version of Star Trek.
Magic ships in space.
You had Dark Sun.
Dark Sun.
You had El-Jahar?
Al-Qadim.
El-Qadim.
Which was their kind of Arabian Nights setting. They had
Eberron.
Eberron comes later.
Yeah.
They had Kurtor, which was their kind of Oriental adventures.
Yeah.
They had Planescape, which was weird. Then you had some of the ones that were like very. You had Council of the Worms, which was a setting where you played dragons. You had Birthright, which was kind of their attempt to do like Arthurian fantasy.
Yeah.
Red Steel was. I had the box set, but I couldn't. I think it was more of a swashbuckly kind of.
We forgot Dragonlance.
So Dragonlance was the super high fantasy riding dragons. So if you look at all of those settings as a possible spin-offs, so you have Dungeons and Dragons as the main brand, and then you can have adventures set in all these other campaign settings, and you can choose if you want to put a narrative between them. They can all be their own standalone stories, or you can just mine the Forgotten Realms and set a whole series of movies in the Forgotten Realms.
Hell, if you took every one of the Dritz novels and turned them into a movie, you're set for 50, 60 years?
But yeah, there is potential there. There's potential to do a lot of storytelling in those realms. And now that Marvel finished their first big arc, everybody's kind of looking at like, okay, can they put lightning in a bottle a second time? Is the next big phase, the next big arc of Marvel going to be as big and as spectacular as the first one was? And especially now that, let's face it, we all aren't looking at the movies Marvel's got in the pipe and going, oh man, are we all super excited for the Eternals?
No.
Is everybody, like, are there a legion of Shang-Chi fans out there that are going to be lining up to see Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings?
Probably not.
So Marvel's got this. I mean, they did just deliver the first of their Disney Plus series.
Yeah, WakandaVision, which I still haven't watched.
Did you just call it WakandaVision?
Yes. WandaVision.
Now
I want WakandaVision.
Now I really want WakandaVision. I want a 10-part series that's just like a sitcom set in Wakanda. Could you imagine how good that would be?
Or you get Suri and Vision together.
Oh my god! But it's like an odd couple thing.
Exactly.
Oh, Disney
with their neighbor, Black Panther and Scarlet Witch.
Man, I am so...
Be like Letty and Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. Disney Plus, if you're listening.
Make that happen.
Yes!
Ugh.
But WandaVision.
Yeah.
Haven't watched an episode yet.
So I think Marvel's in this spot right now where it's because of the weird break that happened because of COVID. And what happened right before that was they just got the Fox properties back. While COVID was going on, they got the Marvel Netflix properties back. There's still the ongoing issue of the Sony, but now Marvel has pretty much, with the exception of the Sony things, everything's back in the House of M. So there is potential to do Marvel Cinematic Universe-esque stories in D&D. But there are other games that the same potential exists in. The cool thing about an RPG universe is it's the universe, it's more the universe than the characters. So you can tell a story in the universe. It's kind of like Star Wars. So you have Rogue One, where you told a standalone story in the Star Wars universe using the characters of Rogue One, and in the end they all die. And then you can go make the next Star Wars movie, and it's still in the same universe, but it's all new characters having an all new plot.
Well, or even spin off to a TV series, a la The Mandalorian.
Yep. So, in that specific article, they mentioned that some other properties that were being looked at to change to option for movies were the ones they listed were Delta Green, Harlem Unbound, Pugmire, Savage Worlds, and Deadlands.
The last two I know.
I know Delta Green. Delta Green is a modern kind of military RPG, but it's like you are the special super elite military force that investigates the Cthulhu monsters.
Okay.
I've never heard of Harlem Unbound, and I've never heard of Pugmire. Savage Worlds and Deadlands is a little redundant because now Deadlands is Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
But Deadlands is a good one. I'd like Deadlands, for those who do not know, it started out as a Old West horror RPG. So it's an alternate history where the Civil War, instead of decisively winning, just kind of petered out. And in the Western United States, this miracle ore called Ghost Rock was found that powered all sorts of weird science machines, and you found out that it was powered by basically souls trapped in the rock. There were ancient evil spirits that were trying to basically turn the world into a living horrorscape. It was a game I loved. I still have a lot of love for. In fact, I'm waiting on the most recent version of it from a Kickstarter I backed, which is in shipping to me at this moment. But then they spun off Deadlands to a second game called Deadlands Hell on Earth, which took the Deadlands timeline and advanced it to the future, but of course it's a post-apocalyptic future. And then there was Deadlands Lost Colony, which was, it took the Deadlands story and it was set on a planet on the other side of the universe that they got to through weird science, and it's space adventure, but still set in the Deadlands universe. So this is kind of exactly the story you could make a cinematic universe off of, because all those games, even though they take place over a long period of time, can be interconnected.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, since those were published when Deadlands first came out, they've also added Deadlands Noir.
But I mean, they could go beyond what they listed in the article. What if they took, I don't know, the World of Darkness RPG?
The World of Darkness is one that they tried many times to kind of license into something. They ran into some problems because Vampire the Masquerade is loosely based on a book called Kindred the Embraced. And then that book was in turn, before World of Darkness, a TV show for a while. They only, I think they made less than a dozen episodes of it, but it was a produced TV show. But yeah, World of Darkness is definitely one that there's a lot of storytelling and a lot of crossover storytelling potential in there.
Well, they wouldn't even have to do Vampire Masquerade. There's Vampire Requiem. There's, I think, 2 or 3 other vampire offshoots.
Well, there is Vampire the Requiem is the only one that's a separate universe. The other one is they have Vampire Dark Ages, which is the same universe as Vampire the Masquerade, but set in the Dark Ages. So, but I mean, and even if not including Vampire, there's the werewolf story, there's the mages, there's the just plain vanilla World of Darkness. But there's a compelling story. There's compelling stories to be told in there.
Yeah.
But you see an example of what could be with Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
That was directly based off of the Cyberpunk pen and paper RPG, and was turned into a AAA title video game. I mean, yeah, there were some growing pains on the release, but it's still a really incredible game. And holy crap, would I love to see a Cyberpunk-based movie.
Well, they kind of had a Shadowrun-based movie called Bright.
Yeah. But Shadowrun's another one where it can be a multi-genre movie, because you also have Earth Dawn, which was the the fantasy history of Shadowrun. And there was another White Wolf game, the Aeon series, which it was a story told in 3 stages. You had the first game was called Adventure, and it was kind of like a 1920s pulp game. Then you had Aberrant, which took the story to the modern day, and it was a superhero story. And then it ended up in Aeon Trinity, which was a far future kind of sci-fi game. But it was the same universe told over that long period of time. Another example was, there is a Swedish artist, I've talked about on here, Simon Stalag.
Yeah.
He put out a couple of art books, and one of his art books, they made a role-playing game based on it called Tales from the Loop.
Okay. And
based on that role-playing game, Amazon optioned that to a TV series. So it was a 12-episode TV show based loosely on those works. And it's got like a Twilight Zone vibe to it, where it's every episode's a standalone story.
Yeah.
All set in the same universe. And kind of, they're loosely tied together. But, I mean, like, if you just talk about, like, independent RPGs that could be branched out to a cinematic universe, I think that's what the idea that they're looking for in Hollywood is. They want a universe where they can tell multiple different stories within that same universe.
The Forgotten Realms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at your books, trying to see if I think of or see any other titles that would make a decent universe.
I mean, books I've read. They did make an RPG for The Expanse.
Yeah.
Then we're getting into the reverse of the argument of movie series they made into RPGs, and we're talking about RPGs that could be made into movies.
Yeah, because if you go movies or TV shows that went to RPG form, you got Leverage, Supernatural.
Well, yeah, Margaret Weiss Productions. That was their bread and butter for a while, was licensed games. They did Leverage, Supernatural, Smallville, not Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was another one. They did Battlestar Galactica. They did the Marvel RPG for a while.
But yeah, when it comes to a continued RPG cinematic universe, if you will, if it's going to be D&D based, their best bet is to stick with Faerun and the Forgotten Realms, because a lot of Twitch streamers that are gamers is starting to play Baldur's Gate 3. You have Neverwinter's Night and Neverwinter's Night 2. You have all the different Waterdeep games that are out there.
There is one significant roadblock to doing anything movie-based in the Forgotten Realms. And that is the fact that while Dungeons & Dragons Wizards of the Coast owns the Forgotten Realms, many of the people, places, and things that we associate with the Forgotten Realms...
Salvatore.
No. Ed Greenwood.
Oh, that's right.
Are the express property of Ed Greenwood, who essentially created the Forgotten Realms for TSR back in the day. That was why when D&D 3rd edition came out and they made the Forgotten Realms source book, they advanced the timeline 400 years. That had been some cataclysmic event to kill off many of the named characters, was because the characters they killed off were people that Ed Greenwood owned, because he created the original ideas for it. He wrote many of the books that were set in it. So many of them, outside of Dritz, the most famous characters in the Forgotten Realms are pretty much all Ed Greenwood's creations. But that being said, I mean, there's still meat on the bone there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, we exist in this kind of world where Hollywood's kind of chasing the dragon. It's, if something works, then we've either got to find a way to copy that thing that works, or
beat it like a dead horse.
Yeah, beat it like a dead horse till there's nothing left in it.
And now for something completely different.
Greetings, listeners. This is the Master Control Program, once again from the Edit Suite. At this point in the podcast, we diverged to a pretty significant off-topic conversation that lasted for the better part of 20 minutes. So now we're going to pick back up in the conversation where we start talking about TV shows that share the same universe. Enjoy!
So does that mean the Librarian and
Leverage are a shared
in
universe?
the same universe?
See, that's another...
Because Christian Kane was on both shows.
Yeah. And in fact, the last episode of this podcast, we talked about the Gilmore Girls soprano paradox.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah. But that's another whole subject I'd love to just sit down and watch, is like the TV shows that weirdly share a universe.
Theoretically, Supernatural and Scooby-Doo, since they had that one crossover.
Yes, they do. And that which technically Scooby-Doo also shares a universe with Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And
Gilligan's Island.
And Gilligan's Island, but also, and this is a fun one. You can technically argue that Scooby-Doo takes place in the same universe as Futurama.
Intrigue me.
In the original Scooby-Doo, one of the many reoccurring guests was the Harlem Globetrotters. In Futurama lore, the Harlem Globetrotters were aliens from the planet Globetrotter who had came to Earth. So, because Scooby-Doo met the Harlem Globetrotters, technically they can exist in the same universe as Futurama.
Oh, God.
But like all the Dick Wolf shows supposedly take place in the same universe.
Yeah.
There's a couple other shows, like weird ones, where like shows that take place in the same universe. It's, and I can't think of any examples right away, but. So and also Scooby-Doo takes place in the DC universe.
Yeah.
Because they met the Super Friends.
Well, so does Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm. But I think we're getting at a good point where we can call it an episode. Dave, where can people find you out in the world?
You can find me... God, I haven't done this in so long. If you go to davenc.com, that's my personal website, you can find episodes of my podcast, Dave's Nerd Compendium, which I've been on a hiatus since August because of work and student teaching and school, and thank God that's done and I have my master's. But I'm going back for another master's here soon anyway. So, but yeah, davenc.com. You can follow me there. It'll take you to my Twitter page, the Facebook group for my podcast. If you see somebody posting from Dave Patterson on any one of John's things, it's probably me.
Yep.
Just search Dave the Nerd on Facebook and you can find me.
And if you go back through his podcast, you might even be able to find a couple episodes starring me.
Oh, yeah. A couple of the Nerd Book Club episodes, RPG one. Coincidentally, we always talk about RPGs for some reason.
Yeah, it's a shared interest.
And, of course, drinking, because I used to do a show called I'm Thirsty.
Yep. Oh, man, we did a couple episodes of that.
Oh, yeah. Still have a couple more that we need to do, but getting me and Brewski together is kind of hard.
We're getting old. It's hard to line up schedules.
Oh, yeah, especially with y'all having kids and me teaching kids.
In some cases, my kids.
No, they weren't in my class when I was doing teaching.
How do you know?
Because I remember every one of my students' names.
Well, you were at their school, so it's possible, but yeah.
I probably saw them the little bit that I was there when students actually came in.
Right. Oh, man. And you can always find us at Old Nerds Drinking, the Facebook group, or the Old Nerds Drinking Facebook page.
oldnerdsdrinking@gmail.com.
Yep. Or you can contact us at oldnerdsdrinking@gmail.com. But as always, I'm John Patrick, the Master Control Program, and this is...
End of line.